Tonight, we're going to discuss possible changes to the Fanatically Real Redraft schedule based on the release of the NFL's schedule. We're going to give out some dynasty draft grades, and we're going to show off all of the rest of the leagues under the FSA umbrella. All of this and more in 20 seconds. Hey, fellow fans, to the Fanatically Real broadcast sponsored by Football, Darts, and Fantasy Sports Alliance. I don't want to do this by myself tonight. I'm bringing you in early. Kevin, how the hell are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Stressful evening. You already know what it's like since we've been sitting here for about an hour together. Really, how are you? How was your day? You guys were off air yesterday, right? Did you enjoy your night off?
No. I had the same type of stress you had going on today, on yesterday. Outside of the fantasy world, you know how life hits you some days. But back in the swing of things today, loving the stars and stripes on you.
I appreciate that, man. Although the joke that you tried to make prior to us going live about, I think it was a fat joke, I think is what you were hoping for when you said something about the 14 stripes on me, and you actually still said 13 stripes in the first place, which makes sense. So it didn't really relate to a fat joke. You tried.
I tried.
Had you said 14 when you first tried to make the joke, it would have been pretty funny, and I probably would have laughed harder. But then I just laughed at you instead. So, hey, before we get too deep into this show, let's talk about Football Darts, our broadcast sponsor. Football Darts is a dart game that combines the skill of traditional darts with the strategies of American football. This innovative dart game is played on a uniquely designed multiple-target dartboard. It can be played in sports bars, at tailgate events, as league tournaments, or as a leisure activity in the comfort of your home. If you would like to check out their officially licensed collegiate dartboards, go to footballdarts.com. Enter the promo code IPLAYFSA, and you will get 30% off your order. Included with the board are 4 darts, pins for positions, rule book, everything you need to play right out of the box. And they are also going to be a sponsor for us this year. With that sponsorship by Football Darts, you will be able to get a custom dartboard of your team's brand for you at the end of the year. So that is going to be awesome. Thank you to Football Darts for that. We got Eric O'Neill out there with us, one part of the trio of Empty Wagon. Eric, let us know how last week's show went. If you guys are not listening or watching Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast, you are doing fantasy football wrong. Make sure you go out and listen to Brad, Eric, and Josh on the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find them on all of the same places that you see us tonight, all the same places that you listen to us tonight. Go out to Facebook, Twitter. We don't do Twitter anymore. We do Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Make sure you go out and find them on Anchor FM. Where else can you hear them at with all of the plethora of things that we've got going on, Kevin?
You can hear them on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music. We said Anchor already, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcast for your listening pleasures.
You know how you've made it in the world? This is how I know the Empty Wagon guys have made it in the world. So I have an Alexa screen. I don't know what the heck the thing is called down in my kitchen, right? It's connected to a speaker system that goes throughout my kitchen, my downstairs. And I tell Alexa the other day, Alexa, play the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast for me. And it plays the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast, knows who these guys are, and plays them for me throughout my house. That's how you know you've made it in the world, is when Alexa can find you out there in the internet. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Just gave it a random try the other day. It was super awesome. So he says, show was good. I might be the worst producer of ever. Listen to the first 10 minutes. If you don't listen to anything else, it was fun. I'll make sure I go out and listen to the first 10 minutes again then. And we got Stan out there with us tonight. Stan, the brand newest member to us in the FSA Redraft, is out there tonight. And I see Heather's out there tonight as well. Heather, how are you? So you guys were off the air last night. So you guys got a week off. So what are you guys looking like next Tuesday? Are you guys going to be on the air?
That I'm unsure of. I know we'll go ahead and let everybody know we will not be on next Wednesday.
We will not be on next Wednesday.
So we may have to come on Tuesday just to do probably a short show, maybe a news update as things start to ramp up, or a reminder of everything. We'll do a combo show, some of the information you might find from Wednesday on a Tuesday. So we'll have to see, get Josh's opinion.
So Ross says aloha. And the reason I am wearing this tonight, even though it is a Hawaii one, it's more about the stars and the stripes that are on it, because like Kevin said, we will not be back next week for the Fanatically Real broadcast. That will be the show just before Memorial Day weekend is supposed to happen. The family and I will be traveling back from the Appalachian regions. We're going to go up to the Black Bears region and spend a couple of days up there, and we'll be traveling back. I don't want to rush ourselves back down here to the South Atlantic Dragons region, so we're just going to go ahead and say no show next week. So I'm hoping that you guys get to go on the air. So keep me informed. Let me know if you and Josh are going to go on or not. The best region, as Damien says, and I can't really disagree from that, but I will say I'll be going from one great region on vacation back home to another great region. We'll go with that. How about that? South Atlantic Dragons, I think, are sitting at 20 members now, 21 members. I don't know where we're at right now.
But it's definitely a hot spot. And your volume has gone out just like you predicted, Brian. As we fix our technical difficulties and we move into the next part of our show, get things rolling here while Brian figures it out. We are going to walk through. You're not back.
I'm back. I didn't say anything when I said it. Oh. I'm back. So yeah, we're gonna do a couple things we're gonna do on the show tonight. Like we said, we're gonna talk about the different possibilities of scheduling for the redraft. We're gonna talk about some draft grades for those that have done the rookie drafts so far, Alpha through Delta. And then we're going to talk about some of the other leagues that we've got under the FSA umbrella. But we were just mentioning membership a second ago. So let me give everybody an update of where we're at membership numbers. So we picked up 6 more people in the redraft league since the last time we aired, which was on the 5th of May. So that puts us at a total 79 in the redraft. Of course, we've got 48 in Alpha through Delta. We've got 12 in Echo, 12 in Foxtrot. Those are still drafting right now. I think they have broken our 11-day long streak from last year's startup drafts. We got 20 in the QB54 Arm and Leg League. We've got 11 in your auction league, and then we've got 12 in the DOD league. But the DOD league is starting to grow. We're starting to get some momentum and movement on that, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. With that, extra 6 people that we picked up since the last show, we're sitting at 194 teams across all of the teams that are under the FSA umbrella right now. And Damien wanted to know, do you know how many new members are in redraft this year? I'll tell you what, Kevin, you talk, I'll do some counting.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll hit on the couple of the leagues that we still need to find members for to help grow a little bit. We'll hit it twice throughout the show, or again later on when we go into in depth. But we are sitting at 11 members out of a total of 14 for our auction IDP league. It will be the same rule set as the redraft, so Superflex and tight end premium. But the special caveat here, it is an auction draft, and there is a 3-player IDP. So a little bit different, not something that we've done before in FSA. And as a bonus, we are basing our team names. We like to theme everything here at FSA. This theme is going to be fictional sports teams and characters. Myself, I am the Mean Machine, and my average brother Josh plays opposite as the guards. So should be a lot of fun. Still need 3 more guys for that. I know Brian has yet to pull the trigger on it. We'll have to see about that.
Well, what I want to do is I want to make sure you get fresh blood in there. Somebody that's not me, but if you need me to be that, and even with me, I'm definitely fresh blood. I'm old blood, so you need fresh blood in there. So, but if you need that 14th guy, I'll get you in there. That's not a problem, man.
Stan says, "What's up? What's up, Stan? Hope you enjoy the show. Stick around. We're going to talk a ton of fantasy, as you say. It is life. We would probably agree with you there."
To answer Damien's question about how many rookies we have right now, Damien, we have 25 rookies right now. So we have 2 bona fide rookie spots still open right now. Stan took that 94th spot. So 95 and 96 are completely still open right now. But of course, if we don't have any of the returning members from last year that we're still waiting to hold out on, those will be open for people as well. But as of right now, 25 rookie members. What do you say? You need good competition. The commission would make it too easy. Hey, are we going back to the I don't have a trophy thing again? That was months ago. Can we get off of that, please?
You said that. I don't think he said that.
I'm pretty sure there's a T-shirt out there that says something like that to that effect.
Yes, there is.
All right, so we talked about you got your spot about the auction leagues. We'll talk about the other ones as we get towards the end of the show. What I really want to talk about right now is the courses of action that we're thinking about taking. The NFL releases their schedule, right? The bye weeks are all the way out to week 14. There's an 18 weeks season this year, 17 games. Everybody gets a bye, so they're going to play to week 18. We have to assume that some of the NFL teams are probably going to rest players that already know that they're playoff bound in week 18, just like it used to be in week 17 in seasons previous, right? So we could probably play up until week 17. So one of the courses of action that we're going to throw out there for everybody for the redraft is no changes whatsoever. What you see on the rules page right now would be how it would be. So what that would look like is there would be 11 regular season games where you would play everybody inside your region once. And then we would take the top 4 teams from each one of the regions, and we would in weeks 12 and 13. The unfortunate part about that, now knowing that the NFL is starting or still continuing bye weeks in a week 14, is that our playoffs would then be 14, 15, and 16 because we're going to do 8 regions of 12 this year. That means 8 teams go or 8 regional champs go. So there's 3 weeks there for buys or to satisfy the world championship, 14, 15, and 16, because I don't want – my original thought when I built that is I don't know what the new 18-week schedule is going to look like with 17. Why touch 17 and 18 until we know what that looks like, right? So that's what that looks like right now. That's a course of action. The other course of action is, and I don't know how happy everybody would be about this. I don't think this. I honestly believe putting it out to the masses right now, people would probably say, "No, I don't like that option," and that would be we would play 14 weeks of regular season play. And then we would have 3 weeks of playoffs, 15, 16, and 17. So we would deep into 17 because it's going to take 8 teams to the playoffs, which are going to be the 8 regional champions. However, there's no regional championship under that configuration of that course of action because here's what it looks like. MFL will not allow us to break the regions down any further than what we've got them. MFL sees them as conferences and then divisions. The MFL will only allow you to do 6 conferences, but it will kind of let you do unlimited to divisions. So right now, our regions are MFL's divisions. Okay. So there's no smaller increment under that. So what we would do is to play a 14-game season, we would use the same scheduling algorithm that we use in the dynasties right now, where we would essentially virtually break the regions up in divisions of 4, and then you would play everybody inside your division twice for 6 games and everybody outside your division once for 8 games, totaling 14. Then we would only take the top team from each region into the World Championship. There would be no regional playoffs. The good thing about that is all of your regular season is played in those first 14 weeks, so we don't have to worry about bye weeks, right? And then we go into the playoffs. So I don't know how the fans would feel about that, but that's a course of action. And the last one, and I'm going to put up what Damien said here first before we go into the last one. Week 17 scares me that teams might lock up playoff spot early and rest guys half the game because of the extra game. And I don't disagree with you, Damien. I don't disagree with you at all. But with that being said, that doesn't play well into what my next course of action is. However, when you really think about what we do here at FSA, how this next course of action, like when you hear it, you're like, that would be a cool little spin for FSA, right? So Imagine still doing what the original plan is, what the rules say right now, Kev. When you go out on our rules page and you see what the regular season schedule looks like, and it says it's 11 weeks, right? And we said we're going to take the top 4 teams to the regional championships, right? And the part about that is that that's only 2 weeks, right? So that's 12 and 13. So you would start the first round of the World Championships with a bye, right? What if we could get through the regional championships by using all 3 weeks of the byes that are remaining, meaning 11 weeks of regular season, and then 12, 13, and 14 are regional championship playoffs. However, there's a couple of ways you can skin that cat, right? Anything that's 5 or above, up to 8, could play inside 3 weeks. So you're thinking in your brain, well, we'll just take 6 or 8, right? We'll use this like cookie cutter, simple 6 or 8 thing. What if you were a 500 team, 6 and 5 or above, you went to the playoffs from your region? Meaning, in most cases, if you look at the way it played out last year, that means you could have 5 teams, 6 teams, 7 teams, 8 teams. It would all depend on your region, meaning you're taking everybody that's above 500 into the playoffs then. And you would actually have still 3 weeks of playoffs with the possibility of 4 different playoff ladders based on what your region does. But everybody still plays through week 14 in the regional playoffs with no more byes. However, your world championship then is 15, 16, and 17. What would you think about that? And for everybody that's out there watching or listening to this or watching or listening to this later, what do you think?
So as of right now, after the regional champions are decided and you go to the world bracket, what is that first week? 14?
No, it'd be 15. So
as of right now, as of the rule set today.
As of the rule set today, it would be week 14 would be round 1 of the world championship. And if you, I have my hand.
What week do we end in?
It would be week 16 then instead.
Okay, so it'd be 14, 15, and 16. Okay, how about this? We skip the complication and we do one of 2 things. Okay, because I think out of all the fantasy leagues I've ever played in, I think FSA lines up the nicest as far as getting 96 teams into a playoff setting and getting them interested for all 16, 17 weeks, right? Because as of the current set that we have, 96 divided by 3 is 332 team brackets. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't want to lose that. I think that plays out very, very nicely into what we do because you're taking that many for the top half anyway once you break it up, right? And you take those teams out for the regions and stuff. I have 2 courses of action. A, don't cry because you should have drafted in the first place based on byes because you have them affected all the way up to week 14 anyway. Last year was week 13. So it's already a part of fantasy and it's a part of any good fantasy owner's drafting strategies to draft around byes. Or B, we do what our original idea was for this offseason, which I don't actually know why we scrapped it, is to do an inter-region week where we pick opposite regions. You extend the regular season only 1 week, which pushes your championship rounds back 1 week. So now you still have to deal with the week in the early playoffs and your regional playoffs, but now your world championships are 15, 16, and 17. I do understand what Damien's saying as far as scared about week 17, but it doesn't scare me as much as the final week. And I'd rather have somebody for a half of a game than a full game. Plus, that kind of goes into the strategy anyway. So those would be my only 2 courses of action that I would probably even consider is no change or a 1 week change.
So if your no change is because you want to make sure that we still get all 96 teams into some kind of playoff format, right?
Well,
What if
just because I love how it's broken up now. I love the exact format. I don't want to change anything about the format versus having somebody involved.
Well, what if I told you we were still able to get all 96 teams involved, even with that latest course of action where we have 5, 6, 7, 8 teams into playoffs? Here's what that would look like. So the regular season ends in week 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is no way in that scenario, when you do the math, that teams 65 through 96 make the playoffs or make the regional playoffs. Because if every region had 8 teams that were 500 and above and went on to that's 64 teams. So you're already 65 through 96 aren't going to make that. So what do you do in that case? You have them play weeks 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 5 weeks. And that satisfies that group of 32. All right. You have to play 1 week to make sure that you gain all of the other 32 teams that allows you to play 33 through 64. After the first round of those playoffs, whether it's 5, 6, 7, or 8 teams in each one of them, you can go ahead and start that group of 32. That happens in weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Still 5 weeks. You're still done before week 18. It still allows us to have the bowl games, which are the runner-ups for each one of the regions. And it still allows you to have the round of 16 that we talked about as well, which are the teams that are the first 2 out in that round in weeks. Can't do the math right now. I think that works out to 14, 15, and 16. Or 14, 15, 16, 17 to be able to satisfy that. All of that can still be played out where all 96 teams still make it.
So Ross brings up a great point here, which nobody I have heard said yet. If you're talking about week 17, you're technically only talking about 2 teams anyway.
2 fantasy teams in that period of time.
2 teams that it really matters to. Now, granted, more realistically, if we talk about everybody that's in the know and in the money to win any types of prizes, it's more like 6 to 8 because there's still those other bowl games anyway. But I think that the inner region idea, like Stan says here, promotes you to get to know somebody outside of your 12. It promotes regional dominance because you would pair 2 regions, so everybody within those regions would play each other. So we could really see who is the best, Appalachian or the South Atlantic, because I would love to see that pairing.
South Atlantic won that all day. I don't even know what you're worried about.
Well,
I mean, I don't even know why we have to have the game.
If that's the case, put your money where your mouth is and fix the schedule.
Rest of the second half. I mean, Damien doesn't have Damien has a very good argument here. Do you want to see a championship get affected because Mahomes and Rodgers rested at the second half?
Yeah, but here's the caveat, though. I mean, I 100% understand this, but do you also want to see a outcome where a fantasy owner can't work around that and manage a team correctly where you're banking on one player? I mean, there's moves all season long. I don't think we currently have a trade deadline.
We do. It's always right around Thanksgiving time frame. I think it's the week before Thanksgiving, right around Veterans Day usually.
We could always we could always do something with that as far as moving that out. The teams aren't that deep to where there is always waiver moves to be made. I mean, it's just drafting correctly. If you're really worried about it and you think you're going to be 2 of the teams that are in the final week, draft accordingly or make moves accordingly. I think that to say that don't play in the second to last week of the season because you think somebody may hold out now, I think is a little irrational, because if you look at all the years I've ever played fantasy, I don't really know that many that have actually held out the final week. You have to be a 2-loss team or less to really have something locked up, especially with only 1 seed getting a bye now. I mean, I think it was the Chiefs and the Bills. I think the Bills even played this past year as far as holding players out. I mean, it doesn't happen as often as people try to make it say.
Well, I know that, let's speak from personal, and I know Damien and Chris are saying some really good things that are out there. You can't predict a player getting rested. It's an unknown, unlike when the bye week is going to be. You're asking to predict an unknown against knowing when the bye weeks are. They're making great points out there. I know personally it affected me many, many years ago, before we ever thought about Superflex and PPRs and stuff like that. I had Steve Young starting for me in the finals one year, or starting against me one year in the finals. And I think we did at that year, I think it might have been 6 points for a touchdown and -4 for an interception, or -2 for an interception or something like that. And I remember they played Philadelphia. Final score was 40-8. I think it was the first year that they introduced the 2-point conversion. 49ers had locked up playoff spot. Steve Young rested the whole second half. I ended up losing that game by 2 points. Now, that's not to say Steve couldn't come back in and had a great second half and throw for a whole bunch more yards and more touchdowns and stuff like that. But in my brain, I kept thinking, had he played, there was a possibility, especially with -2 per interception that year. He could have done nothing for yards, nothing for touchdowns, thrown a couple more interceptions, got a couple more negative points, and it would have hurt me. And instead, with him being rested, it helped the team that I played against, and I lost that year. One of my 4 losses in the finals that I have, going back to having no trophies type thing, right? I do like the idea of, I think it is FSA-esque if we decided to do the playoffs where anybody above 500 got in, and that allows us to do different playoffs at 5, 6, 7, and 8. But I also get where that takes us into week 17 with that playoff, right? So asking the people that are out there, would you rather, and Kevin, would you rather see us do 11-week regular season, 12 and 13 for the playoffs with only 4 teams each, knowing that the first round of the Worlds, it has the byes of Indianapolis, Miami, New England, and Philadelphia in week 14 going with that? Because in that scenario, that doesn't have us play in a regional play. If we do inter-regional play or cross-region play, that adds another week to our schedule, which now means our schedule doesn't end until week 12. We're going to play the playoffs in 13 or 14. It still takes 3 weeks to satisfy 8 regional champions in the World Championship. So that's 15, 16, and 17. So we're still dipping into week 17.
So for me, I personally would be torn between the two.
Okay.
The only change I would put my vote for is adding one singular week with the same exact setup and putting the inter-region week in. Outside of that, I would like to see it stay exactly how it is with the 3 brackets moving forward and just play with the byes, because you play with the byes every year no matter what, regardless. I know it makes it a little bit nicer when you get to see teams at full strength through the playoffs and see, don't have to deal with that, but it's part of the drafting strategy. It's part of the waiver wire strategy, trade strategies. I know I made a couple of trades last year just to try to negate buys that I had around people. So to me, keeping it as is works for me, but I am okay adding 1 week and playing till week 17, especially since week 17 is marginally it's divisional games. So I don't see a lot of players, unless they truly have it locked up by 2 games. I still think they want to play that game because it could have divisional reasons to not rest. You can win or lose a division.
Did you see Bill's comment? Is that why you smiled and giggled at the same time I did? No. Bill says play the buys and pay your $1 fab. Going against one of the long conversations we had today. Play with the buys just like you would play through injuries. So if we kept it exactly the same with absolutely 0 changes to what's in the rule set right now, you play 11 weeks. We take the top 4 from each one of the regions. That means those regional playoffs are 12 and 13. That means your first round of the World Championship, you're missing Indianapolis, Miami, New England, and Philadelphia. So what players are you missing from those teams then?
Well, that late in the season, you're missing Mac Jones, whoever Carson Wentz's backup is.
Carson Wentz
Jonathan,
isn't there anymore.
he's
Oh,
with the
okay. Over
Colts.
in the Colts. Yeah, I'm thinking Philadelphia. Yeah. Don't face palm me.
So,
I knew what I meant.
Jonathan Taylor, because he's a workhorse, you'll miss him. Um,
Miles Sanders,
no,
Jalen Hurts.
they're RBBC now, so I don't count anyone there. They have too many. They have Kerryon Johnson. They have what's his name? Who was there? Bigger back.
Is Tua a consideration? Is Devontae Parker a consideration?
Parker is Tua's a question mark at this point to say if he would truly be missed. Superflex, I guess. You'd miss your Superflex guy.
You're the Appalachian or Mid-Atlantic regional champion, wherever you fall into this year, because we know you're going to fall into one of those two, right? You've won the region. You're getting ready to start the World Championship. You're the 4 seed getting ready to play the 5 seed, and you have buys against your roster in the first round. How does that make you feel?
See, I feel like that's my fault because I should plan going into the draft and week over week to not be handicapped by buys. I've already made moves by the time I get there to not be handicapped.
Okay.
I may have a guy, I may have 2 guys. Worst case scenario, maybe 3 guys on buy. Worst case in the same week. But if I go into that week, I know that I don't want them to be 3 top playmakers. I'm not going to have Cam, Hurts, and say Sanders. I'm not going to have all 3 on my team. It just won't happen. I don't see any fantasy owner making, say, your QB 1, 2, and RB 1 all in the same buy. You just don't draft that way. I know you don't.
No. In fact, I even made the comment earlier this weekend as we were discussing things, as we're talking about it. Like, I use it a lot in all of my draft strategies when I look at it, which is why we're even having the conversation tonight, right? What do the courses of action look like so we can avoid these buy things? But I know for me personally, I already use that as part of my draft strategy. So if you had to rank your courses of action for what we discussed tonight, with your additional one that you've added in there with the cross-region play, what would you take? Don't change? Is that your number 1? Don't change?
Anything? Don't change it. Don't change is 1. Number 2 is 1 additional week with inter-region play. That's it. No other options for me are feasible.
So let's go back to, we got Ross on with us. I hope Ross is still out there. So Ross does this really awesome thing with his NCFF league, right? Where you get to schedule who you want to play whenever you're playing your out of conference plays. It's only 1 game for us, unlike what NCFF does. They do 4 or 5 games, right? How do we schedule the cross-region play then? Do we let the 2 general managers decide who they want to play? Or let
I would say early vote yes. We would say, hey, here's your region that you're playing. Make it all the same week. So say week 6 or 7, right in the middle.
Okay.
And say, hey, you're playing, hey, Brian, you're in the South Atlantic region. You're playing the Great Lakes region. Do you have anybody from the Great Lakes region that you would like to play? First come, first serve to set it up. If you guys agree, great. I'll put it on the schedule now, and your names are out the hat. If not, come the start of the season or whenever I have to finalize this to make sure that everyone knows who that is and they're not worried about it, that they just get drawn from a hat.
So one of the things that I've always wanted to do with the cross-region play was I always wanted to start the following season off with a repeat of the previous year's World Championship, right? So in this case, we had the Ohio River Monsters and the Chris Betts were our two final teams from last year, right? And I always wanted the regions to play against each other inside that schedule. So I believe that was Phoenix and Appalachian region. Is that where they came from last year? I believe. And those two teams are guaranteed to play against each other, right? That's going to be the replay of the next year. So then those two regions play against each other. Rotate the regional play of who you play, kind of like what it is in conference play right now for the NFL, where if it's on the AFC side, that rotates every couple of years, NFC side, that rotates every couple of years, right? One of the things that you won't ever do, though, is you won't ever play your rivalry bowl region, because we want to leave that bowl game specifically for you and your rivalry region. So that we set the precedence by putting those two teams against each other. I mean, will we let them schedule themselves, or will we do something like that?
Well, that leads to Ross's question: why make it Region A versus Region B? And I think the easiest thing there is just because of how it plays out, and then you're trying to make 96 matchups across the week and get a hold of 96 teams that may not know all people, versus if you give them a concise, hey, pick one of these 12, maybe just a little bit easier from a commish standpoint because of all the other stuff we have going on to do. I mean, not a bad idea to open it up to every region. I mean, I would love to play Toby. I know that would be a nice matchup for myself, or, depending on where it is, you never know which region it will be against. So not a bad idea. I think just logistics, it simplifies it to go one off.
I think other than probably playing you, Josh, the guys from the Empty Wagon, of course, I'd play just about everybody from the Great Lakes region, right? Because that's home for me. That's Dad, that's Jason, that's Greg. The guys that I'm used to been playing since the mid 90s. So leaving it as a free for all might be a thing. So, and Chris says he's more than happy to sort that 1 week schedule out for us. Chris, I would love you if you would do that. But let's see if that's a course of action we go with. I mean, if I had my pick, we would do nothing. We would stay with what we're at right now, and everybody in the first round of the World Championships would just have to deal with that week 14. Because, like I think the majority of the people have said on the show tonight, they would rather deal with a known bye week than a week 17 that they don't know what's going to happen to their players. Right? We already see what that looks like when we do the All-Team Bowl at the end of the year. And again, that's going to happen this year, whether we do that in 17 or 18. Those two general managers might have to deal with that. I think I would lean towards doing nothing as well until we see what the NFL looks like in 17 and 18. And I think if I had to pick my second pick, I would do the other one that I discussed earlier, where we would take the top teams that are 500 and above and have a 3-week playoff, whether that's 5, 6, 7, or 8 teams, because it would make it unique to each one of the regions. And it would allow us to make sure that we got the best of the best teams across all of the alliance in there, because there's a chance that based on how that region played out, there could be a 4-seed team in one of the regions that's under 500, and there could be a 5-seed team in another one of the regions that is above 500 that's not going to make it. But if we promise every team that's above 500 is going to a playoff, then we know we've got the best of the best teams. That's how I see it. And there's a way to do 5, 6, 7, 8 teams in 3 weeks worth of playoffs. So that would be my second lean. The only unfortunate part about that is that would cause us to play our World Championships out to week 17, which could have a question mark at the end of it of what does that look like, right? I would love for you all to continue chiming in on this throughout the rest of the show. We're going to probably make the show a little bit shorter than what we originally anticipated, because we really sat on this topic a little bit longer than I thought we were going to. But if you're watching this later, listening to this later, please come out and hit us up on all of our social media outlets and tell us what you think. And then Damien says, "Oh, I forgot about the All-Team Bowl," because remember, we got to have the All-Team Bowl as well. Got a sponsor to that. It's a great addition that only FSA does. We got to have that game. Whether we do that in 17 or 18 does not matter to me, and that will all be based on whatever schedule we end up doing it in. Week 16 of last year is the same week as week 17 this year. Why did you hold your title game then? Because we were worried about people resting their players in week 17. So,
well, I think what he's saying is, what's the difference if you move it this year out to week 17, knowing there's an additional game? What's the difference versus having the exact setup from last year? And
people
I
might
think
still rest their players halfway through week 16 as well.
yeah,
Same thing that
I
could
think
happen this year.
yeah, I think it to answer Ross's question is just because adding an additional game doesn't mean people can't lock up now an additional 2 games early.
Yeah.
Or a game and a half early. If you know you have it in the bag and you're not, there's nothing to play for, you might take a game and a half off or 2 half games off. You might not play, say, the second half of week 17 and the first half of week 18 or whatever comes out to be. You may play mixed match quarters just because you know you've had it locked up 2 weeks out.
I've heard a lot of coaches, though, also argue against that. Why would I let my stars rest when they need the reps to get ready for the game? Barring injury, the coaches are saying, I would rather play my guys than not play my guys, which is an interesting concept to me.
So if you take a look back, and this is what I've said before, if you take a look back at the Patriots, and I know Damien's going to throw out the Homer talk, but the best team to look at when you're having this conversation, they've never rested Brady in that last game. They may have pulled him in the fourth quarter, and you're only missing a quarter, but he's never missed the game and not played it because they've had something locked up. Even when they,
okay,
even when they were 18-0, or even games where they've had 1 loss or 2 loss, and they had things pretty locked up. You have to remember that team. The team that may rest the last week of the season has the week's bye anyway. So now you're talking about 2 weeks off, and those are the teams that show rust in the game back into the playoffs. So those teams don't typically rest that often, as often as people want to say they do.
I'm debating this in my head right now, which way we would go with this. I think the course of action that's completely off the table, and you would agree with me, is regular season weeks 1 through 14, and then just taking the top 8 teams from each region and go straight into the Worlds. You kind of got that off the table?
Yeah, like I said, to me, there's only 2 courses of action. Anything else is not feasible and too much of a change to the integrity of the layout of why we went 96 anyway for the 332s.
Okay. There was another question I had in there. It came to my head twice, and I completely forgot what it was. Here's my question. Do you think you change your lineup strategy going into week 17 in the World Championship game if you think there's a possibility that one of your star players is going to get rested? In a super flex league, your second string quarterback, do you not start them thinking that they might only play a half, and you start a running back that you know could play a full game instead?
I mean, that's just an added layer of the strategy, isn't it? If you have, say you have 3 running backs, you've got who's going to be a top team. Say you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but then you also have a Miles Sanders and I don't know, Jonathan Taylor. You may never start Miles Sanders over Edwards-Helaire because you think the production goes Edward-Helaire's way, but he may be rested at least in half of the game, so you may sit him. I think that's just part of the strategy, and I think that's what Damien's saying is worst case scenario here, right? Because that forces you to try to predict, hey, is he really going to play a full game and get me my 20 points, or is he going to sit halfway through and get 10 versus my bench guys got 12, and that 2 points could cost me the game.
So you're still okay leaning towards a week 17 with a lineup strategy from the general manager to get you through?
I'm okay with that, personally. I think that's on the manager of the team, the fantasy owner, to come up with a strategy that wins the game and faces the adversity of what's put in front of you. Because you know that it's going to be there all year long. You know going through the playoffs that it's going to be there. You know what's going on in the NFL season, what teams are resting, what teams aren't. So in my eyes, you have plenty of time to start to prepare ahead of time. We could always push out the trade deadline until, say week week 12, wherever that falls.
I'm looking right now at schedules. I will tell you where it would normally fall for us. And I'd have to look and see where it's at on the calendar right now. But I would say probably week 11. It would somewhere be between week 10 and week 11 is where it would be right now. If you wanted to push out an extra week, that would take us to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's what so yeah, you push it out till the start of the regional playoffs. So week 13, prior to week 13. So say, what it would be Monday or whatever, the final day before the games, end of that Sunday. Before the week rolls over, or no, sorry, Tuesday. What am I thinking? Tuesday. Before the league week rolls over, whatever it is. And to answer Damien's question, or to rebut this, as I'm not saying to predict that starting week 1, but just as you make trades in season to go around buys and injuries is the way I'm saying to approach week 17. I'm not saying week 1 don't draft any Chiefs or Bucks players because they're going to be resting at the end of the season. I'm not saying that. But if you overload yourself on those championship caliber teams, or a team comes up out of nowhere, say the Chargers, and can be a championship caliber team, you're going to have to maneuver mid-season with ad drops or just bolstered benches in order to get around it. I'm not saying to try to predict it. I'm saying you're going to have to maneuver in season.
I think some of the argument comes down to the teams that are off in this week, right? Week 14 is, I think, kind of the focus right now. When the NFL decided it.
No, I don't think it's the bye. We're not talking about the bye anymore. We're talking about extending it. I think everybody's okay dealing with the bye, doing nothing.
Gotcha.
Everyone right now is okay with doing nothing and playing the bye. The concern now is if we move it, we like getting around the bye in the playoffs, but we don't like adding a week because then you don't know what starters you'll have.
Like.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the concern.
So number 1 course of action for both of us right now is change nothing. Exactly how it is in a rule set. 11 weeks of regular season, 12 and 13 are playoffs for the regions. 14, 15, and 16 are your worlds, knowing that you're going to be missing Indianapolis, Miami, New England, and Philadelphia in week 14. And then, but you're going to have your full complement of players in the semis and the finals, which is 4 and then 2 teams.
Correct.
Fantasies-wise. Then I think you and I are probably level playing field with the next courses of action. Both of our next courses of action take us out to week 17, which has the unknown. But it plays around with where the playoffs then still start at the same time, right? You're adding an extra game in, which forces us out to still taking 4 teams to the playoffs in your scenario, right? But we're now doing that in weeks 13 and 14 with 15, 16, and 17 being playoffs. The way I'm talking is we still play 11 regular season games. We have 3 weeks of regionals, 12, 13, and 14, based on 500 and above teams. And we're still dealing with worlds in 15, 16, 17.
So Chris says what you're saying, there is that I should trade away top performing assets in case they don't play rather than knowing my bye week. No, so what I'm saying is if it comes down to it and we push out the bye week and say you misdrafted, you have 3 players on that 14th, right? As is now, as is every season up until now, I personally have made it a strategy to trade players away around buys. Even if it's a top performing player, I don't want to be left caught with a bye week where I can't fill a certain spot with a top guy, so I'll trade around it. That's always been a strategy that I've always heard in the 10 plus years I played fantasy, is to maneuver around it that way. The concern is you can't now necessarily do that, say week 12, if you're trying to predict who's going to sit in week 17. I'm saying just make sure that you have a wide range of area for that week 17 and know that there's a possibility you could take a performance hit that you now can't trade around, which I'm okay with because I will try to make sure that my bench is strong enough through the draft that I don't drop any performance.
So, you clicked on the same one. I was getting ready to click on. Stop that. You click it. I'll stop clicking. Damien says exactly what you said. Week 14 is fine. It's week 17 with the championship and the possibility of being decided on a fluke. Small chance, but he'd hate to see it happen. So then my question goes back to this. Is it possible another course of action that we're not thinking about right now? And I'll put it out there in the universe and we'll discuss it after I come back from the Appalachian Black Bears region for the family vacation. Is there another course of action that allows us to get everybody to play everybody inside their own region, which we know is 11 weeks long, allow us to have a regional championship, and allow us to still finish the season in week 16 versus week 17?
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck here. I'm sticking to what we have. I'm a big fan of the layout. I love the 3 tournament strategy.
Yep.
I
think with all of these courses of action that we're discussing right now, though, I think the 3 tournament thing can still happen no matter how we play this. Honestly, I think it's a thing. It can still happen no matter what. We already know 65 through 96 are teams that are not going to make the big playoffs anyway, so they go ahead and have their tournament. But when we're looking at 33 through 64, maybe they wait a week later, and now you're talking about a team who's playing for 33rd place that might have to deal with a week 17 bye. Yeah, it sucks for the 33rd place guy, but we're talking about 33rd place. I love you, all of you, but you're still playing for 33rd, right? A team that's playing for 16th place or 17th place, however we want to look at it, might have to dip into week 17. What we're making sure is that our world championship is finished by week 16. The only way I see that happening is if we only take the top 2 teams from each one of the regions. So now what we're doing is we're playing 11 weeks of regular season. Week 12 is world championship. 13, 14, 15, 16 is worlds. But now you're dealing with the first 2 weeks of worlds buys for those teams that are now in the money. Damien asks, power ranking is still going to be a thing. Power ranking will still be a thing, and that's how we're going to see those teams that are 33 through 96. But the power ranking is going to be different than it was last year. We're going to make it an easier calculation for everybody to be able to figure out. There will be no strength of schedule or quality wins like it was last year. Basically, going to take the number of wins and multiply it by your all play. That's your power ranking.
So, Chris, this layout that you have proposed here is exactly how it currently stands, no change.
Yep.
So basically, Chris would be a advocate of no change.
If Chris, is that what you're saying? Is that what you like? The 11 weeks, 2 weeks of regional playoffs, which would be the top 4 teams, and then 3 weeks of the playoffs, 8, 4, and 2. That's exactly how it's set up right now. So if you're a fan of that, let us know. And I think for Chris or for Kevin and I, that's kind of how we're feeling right now too, especially with everybody advocating they don't know what week 17 is going to look like. And that was the whole reason I built the rules like that, was to make sure that we finished a week 16, because we don't know what 17 and 18 is going to look like in this very first year. And I didn't want to play around with those weeks.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards, as of now, unless somebody makes a truly convincing argument, leaving it as is, at least for this season, and potentially adding the additional 17 in next year and see how it goes. Exactly what my nemesis says here. Just adjust it next year.
Okay.
Because we may find out that it's competitive enough through 17 weeks that nobody really sits until the final week. Or maybe it's only a quarter off.
And here's the other thing too, though. We could watch it this year and watch that it doesn't happen that way. And we just say to ourselves, oh, we missed out on an opportunity to play another week of fantasy football. Let's go ahead and make sure we get it next year. Then in 2022, it does become a thing where they rest in 17 or 18. But we went off of the previous year, the only year that we have of an 18-game schedule or 18-week schedule with 17 games. And now we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot because we used 1 year worth of data to do it, right? But I don't have a problem with letting it sit as it is. You know, we kind of go back to the same argument that I had earlier today when we were talking about what do we do with the FAB. And I said, what are the rules printed before we open the season up on 1 March? And they were. And that was my intent, was to do it this way in case. But been thinking about it now that the NFL schedule has been released, right? That's the catalyst for what we're talking about for the change right now. And I'm okay holding both of those or all 3 of the other courses of action, even the 14-game regular season, as a possibility of throwing it on in 2022. He said, couldn't we figure out a way to use, this is Damien asking, couldn't we figure out another way to use the extra week? Ross asked, what are the prizes for first versus second? Ross, you talking cash differences or are you talking about cash and prizes? So I can tell you for the prize, Nature Coast Tailgating has come back and they are going to give a custom cornhole board and bags to the number 1 team. And I'm working with Jonathan Davies, who is the owner of Football Darts. And I'm pretty sure that what we're working on right now is making sure that the runner up gets custom dartboard made for them with their team brand on it. So you're talking about different prizes, and then you're talking about different cash amounts then as well. What do we do for the? Go ahead.
What if, say, in the final week, if we wanted to test this year, because we have 17 and 18 now versus last year just having 17, we move the all-team bowl to 18, and in week 17 we do what would be our 12th regular season game, just to see what effect on points it has. It won't count towards anything, but we'll mock it as if we were running an additional week there.
Let's think about that. I don't have a problem. You know me, more fantasy football is better for me. Also, one of the reasons why I threw out the course of action of the 14-game regular season, because here's what happens. Now you've got 96 teams that are involved all the way until week 14. Of every other course of action we're discussing right now, other than having the other tournaments, right? Other than having the other tournaments that are out there, essentially there are 2/3 of the league that are done after week 11 in any other course of action we discussed.
Well, that was the whole purpose on those other brackets, right? Is because those other brackets, that granted they may only extend some teams 1 more week if Damien is really that bad and loses and is the 96th worst team. But once you get extended out that far, there's also other prizes. We have other sponsors that have items. We have FSA merch giveaway that we could put in. You know, there's tons of things that we can throw out there. We can even do gift cards if we so choose to, for different things. So there's other items to get in place there. But I think if we truly want to find out how competitive week 17 is, we could just use that as our inter-region week, just as a trial. Let everyone know, hey, set a lineup, please, like you would play this week to win $1,000, because that's what it would be next year.
Are you putting $1,000 on the line for that game? Is that gonna be Kevin money?
I mean, why not?
Don't say that out loud. Somebody might take you up on that. Next thing you know, you got $1,000 on the line in week 17.
Well, what I'm saying is if we had made that change, right?
Yeah.
And the championship game was played in week 17, FSA world champion accumulates prizes and cash out to be about $1,000 once you take into the cornhole board. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Is, hey, set a lineup like you would try to win that. You know, take it semi-serious. even though it's a throwaway game.
I think I'm this 59-minute talk that we've had discussion here. I think I am leaning towards not changing anything for this year. Exactly how the rules are already written. I think there's a lot of question marks around week 17 right now that we don't know. People would rather play around the known versus the unknown. And I think we roll with what we've got. It's just going to mean that those that are in the regional playoffs are going to have to deal with the bye weeks. Those in the world championships won't have to deal with them. Chris says, can we choose a dartboard over the cornhole board? You have to figure out if you end up actually finishing first, how the second place team feels about that. Maybe they still want their dartboard versus the cornhole board, but we can figure that out too.
And we lost you again there, bud. No audio. But that's just because, Chris, it's always raining over there. You guys can never go outside and play any outdoor games. Plus, darts are played in bars, and we know how you guys love your pubs. So
now that I got my audio back, what I was saying was I think we keep these courses of action in our pocket and any other courses of action that might be brought to us, and then we look at what 2022 looks like from that standpoint. What I will say, since we've been like really harping on the redraft so far for tonight, the dynasties won't change. So dynasties will play out to week 14 because that schedule is pretty for a 12-team league, which I love. It's one that I've used since the beginning of time. And then they only have 2 weeks of playoffs, which would be 15 and 16. So we don't have to, we're completely avoiding week 17 in the dynasties. So we're okay there. I know we really were going to talk about dynasty grades for some of our teams, but I think we've gone pretty long on the show tonight. We're in an hour and 1 minute right now. And I think what we could do is we could probably do some really good dynasty grades once the Echo and Foxtrot leagues get done. And they're still in rounds 20, right? There's 28 rounds in those. Wait until after I come back from the Appalachian Black Bear region and we hit on that topic then. We can look at all 6 leagues at the same time then.
Yeah. So just to touch this real quick, because I know it would be the same conversation if we were talking dynasties. No, we are not going to mention Fab, Damien. And not to be rude or crude about it, but just because we do have 6 individual dynasties and the Fab conversation does partake to each individual dynasty itself, each one can make its own change and run individually. So if anybody wants to know about the Fab or the free agent acquisition budget and the waiver wire process for your dynasty, please check out the Discord channels for your dynasty specific. We will run through it there, and any changes could be made there versus getting almost 70, 80 people confused by a rule set that may not even apply to them if they do go back and listen to this.
We had a very good conversation. I think it was very fruitful this afternoon. A lot of people would probably say that it was more probably like a sensing session and people were just griping, but I thought it was very fruitful for all the conversation that we had, because I'm always looking for ways to improve FSA. So if, one person has an idea that I like, you know how I am. I'm like, there it is. I just needed to hear it. And once I hear it, then that's the one we're going to go with. But it was a very good conversation today that we had out there. And Kevin's right. I don't want to bring too much light to it because it's 72 different teams. It's a possibility of one league that something might get changed in. So I don't want to bring it up here to confuse everybody by not keeping it universal. But yes, you're right. It does. However, that was the entire reason why I decided to keep each one of these leagues separate. For that reason.
Well, yeah, but because here's the thing is Brian only plays in 2 out of the 6. And he's only 1 vote out of each individual 12. So necessarily making things complicated for him is kind of what a commission signs up for. So he's not playing in the league, so the rule doesn't matter to him.
I'm not above complication whatsoever. But one of the comments that I made in a Discord channel earlier today, and it's actually the second time that I've had to use this in the 27 years that I've been running FSA. Although I would love to have every one of these leagues be a democracy, I won't specifically support something that I don't see advancing FSA as a business, or making competition more fun, or making it a better experience for all, right? So if that rule change doesn't do that, no matter how many leagues we have running, no matter how many teams we have, I'll probably look at it more as a dictatorship, and I probably will go with what's already in place, especially since in this case, one of the final things I said today was we all started our draft on 8 May. The rules were in place on 1 March. And when everybody signed up for it, they signed up for the rule set.
Yeah. Most leagues.
Somebody said, so why do Discord? Did you lose me again?
For a split second there. Yeah.
Okay.
Most leagues that I've ever played in, redraft or not, at the time of the draft, you have a owners meeting or a managers meeting, whatever you want to call it, and you discuss rule changes for the next year. Never specifically for the year you're in, unless it's drastic and something has to be done, say like our week 17 situation. Hey, how do we play with that? Versus a fab thing. It never takes place within the same year because, like what you said, people have already drafted and made trades and stuff around, and free agent ads as is, whether it be with the budget or without, traded budget, whatever it may be, without that rule place being set. So next league year, sure, but I agree with you there.
Yep, and Stan makes a very good comment. All he has to say was yep, and Stan being the newest guy that's here, I take that. Thank you, Stan, for that. I appreciate it. And for those that are saying happy birthday to me, Douglas Wolfinger, you know for a fact that it is not my birthday. My birthday is not until August, but I do appreciate the happy birthdays anyways. More than likely.
I mean, I was going to say,
yeah,
I was going to say, it seems like a birthday pass because you do look a little bit older there, bud.
Well, that's probably because I'm already feeling the pressure of that new position I'm going to take over. So I've got more gray than I had even 2 weeks ago.
That pressure is not from the new position. It's from that super tight jersey you got on. You might want to go to PT.
It's not even funny. I go to put this jersey on. It's the first time I've had it on in a while. And I do the same thing I do with every one of my shirts. Arm goes through, right? So jerseys don't have the same flexibility as T-shirts have. But I really know that not all larges are created the same, right? So I put it in tonight. I'm getting ready to put it over my head. And I get the arms through, and I feel like, oh, this might not go over my body. It's loose. I don't care what you think and what you see. And there's not 14 stripes. It's only 13.
Give it a day or two. We lost you again. You got to fix that. I can't hear you.
And I'm God freaking AT&T needs to fix it. But
I think that means we've had enough.
I think I'm leaning towards, like, I don't want it to be a dictatorship. The democracy side of it, I didn't see enough arguments that leans one way or another. I am okay with them being different across every single one of the dynasties, which is why we built them as separates. That way we could have a rule set in one and not in another if we wanted to. Does it make it complicated for me? Yeah, but I'm still looking at 11 different leagues with 200 plus members. I still haven't hit the limit of where I don't think I can handle it, or Kevin and I can't handle it together. Josh, the empty wagon guys can't handle it. We can all handle this number right now. I'm leaning more towards what you just said, Kevin. We have a rules meeting after the season discussed for next year, right? And then we make it a thing. We don't do it after the rule sets already come out. We're a little bit different in the redraft right now because when the rules were made and created, the NFL hadn't released their schedule yet. And this schedule being released made a ripple in the possibility of the fantasy world, and everybody felt it. We saw it on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere else that we're following fantasy football, right? So it could possibly be a thing. So something else we're going to talk about during the next show when we go over dynasty draft grades is we're going to go over all of the rest of our leagues that we have under FSA. Kevin already got a chance to mention the auction league. Don't forget about a QB54 arm and leg league. Don't forget about the DOD VRV league, the VRV DOD league. If you are a current serving military member or a veteran, please go out and sign up for that league. We're having some really good rules discussion over there right now about the possibility of a rule change there too. Ted Howard leading the charge on that one. So if you really want to get in on that and then join that rules chat over there as well on Discord, I'd really love you to join the league and then come over there and give your opinion on that rule set as well. Drop me a message when you have 5 tonight. Okay, sure will. I'll probably do it as soon as we get off the phone here, off air night tonight. But I'm pretty sure the missus is going to have some words with me. She was already trying to have words with me before I went live tonight, so I'll probably have to deal with that first. So, Chris, it might be early my morning tomorrow, which I know you'll probably be asleep. We'll discuss. What else you got for us, Kevin, before we get out of here for the night?
That is all from me. Remember, as Brian just mentioned, go out, check out our Discord channel. We have tons of stuff to talk about in all of our chats, fantasy related, rule related, whatever. Great community to float things by. Also, check out our other leagues if you have not yet. If you have any questions on any of them, please reach out to me. I'm available most of the times, if not all of the times. And Damien, I wish you no luck in anything you do. So,
one last thing before we get off the air here. I got to thank our sponsors. Wanted to do a little bit different way tonight. Wanted to make sure we thanked Football Darts, our broadcast sponsor. The Recast, which is the official music of the FSA. Nature Coast Tailgating, which is our Fanatically Real Bowl sponsor. QB54, which is our Arm and Leg League sponsor. Finger Lakes Mercantile, Southern Siren Sugar Scrub, Deep South Creations, Cranky Veteran Candle Company, Redwood Durable, and Shell and Mills Boutique, all bowl sponsors for FSA in 2021. And since you said you wish no luck to Damien, I've only got one final thing to say is thank you for watching the Fanatically Real broadcast sponsored by Football Darts and Fantasy Sports Alliance. Please go out, like, share, subscribe all of our shows where you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. Find us on all the social media platforms, everywhere you can watch us, listen to us on Anchor and all of those great places that Kevin mentioned at the beginning of the show. And remember, we are Fanatically Real. Everybody have a good night.